So we are recording. So as I say, please, if you have questions, do come on. Everything is welcome. There is also a chat box down the bottom of your screen. I'll try and keep my mouse on there so that I see if questions do come up on there. If you don't want to ask a question via the speaker, please do jot something down in the chat box. I will check it as frequently as I can, but if I haven't seen it, then I will see it towards the end of the call. Hi, Brianna, how are you? And yeah, so we're just going to get cracking. So as you will have seen last week when I was doing the demo beforehand, we had a few things drawn up on the whiteboard over in Camden. And it's got a lot of questions coming through to me in the week regarding elevation over direction and why they're so important to cutting hair and for us as stylists. They're brilliant tools to use. So I thought we'd go through a nice layering technique on this mannequin here today, incorporating a few shapes and use of over direction and a lot of elevation. And I'm going to draw my head sheets down the bottom again as usual. I'm going to bring this in slightly just so that you can see it properly before I move it back before we start our haircut. Okay, so primarily speaking, with regards to hair cutting, this is your Bible, okay, for me. This is your fundamental place that we want to sit. So your elevation and your over direction. And I'll explain what these mean and explain how you can utilize these throughout your careers, just by hopefully answer those questions in these videos today, okay? So elevation creates your weight, over direction creates your shape. Okay, the two fundamental parts, rather than, as I always say, rather than just hacking hair to bits, taking more weight out with your thinning scissors or a razor, which is not a wrong way to cut hair. It's a very nice way of cutting, but there's more technical ways to do certain things and to flow certain shapes. So with our elevation starting off, you'll have all seen this chart in your level 2 cutting guides, but it might not have made much sense because there wasn't the head involved and no one's really explained it through too well, possibly to you guys. They probably have, but if they haven't, I will attempt to do so today. So we start at 0 degrees. This is 0 degrees of elevation. And I know when everyone talks about cutting, so you'll have had your graduation be somewhere in about 45 degrees. I'm going to change the color of my coat so you can see. They'll have spoken about 45 degrees of elevation, which would be somewhere in here, which would be our graduation. Then they would have said about lifting the hair up at 180 degrees for your long graduation, and your uniform layers would be 90 degrees out from the head. And they're your sort of fundamental elevations. They're your fundamental ways of cutting level 2 haircuts and basic shapes or basic weight removal. So the difference from where we're looking from that is that's a very regimented, stuck in its ways sort of explanation for hair. So it's something for somebody who has a guest, for instance, who will maybe has some medium density, medium thickness hair, medium hair all over. So there's not too much damage, there's not too much dryness, and it's just the run-of-the-mill client. And they work perfectly fine. But say, for instance, somebody has thicker or finer hair, you need to change your shape and reformulate your shape or your elevation. So if you're working with graduation, for instance, if she's got really thick hair, you're going to want to elevate slightly higher. And if she has finer hair and you want to build more weight in the back, slightly lower elevation, okay? So I will go through this on the haircut that we're going to be doing. We're going to be running through some serious elevation on my mannequin in a little bit of time. So this will become a little bit more explained and explanatory. Anything in 89 degrees and down of elevation, where you're lifting the hair to how high you lift, is getting lighter and lighter and lighter as you come up. But anything 89 degrees and down is all graduation. Okay, so in form, it's going to build a bit of weight in the back. So you're not removing weight from the hair essentially until you get to your 90 degrees of elevation. Once you get through your 90 degrees, the higher you lift the hair again, the lighter the hair becomes. So if you're lifting the hair off the back of the guest, you're getting lighter as you come up. you start to layer the hair once you come above from 90 degrees and above. So anything up to 180, all the way around to quite creative, which is 270 degrees, this will all be your layering. Okay, so removing weight from hair. So graduation builds weight, layering removes weight. So if you think of, I like to say for instance, I made somebody's hair a little bit too heavy while I was cutting in salon. And say we work together and I'm working with Zoe, for instance, in salon. And I elevated my layering to 90 degrees. Okay, and then the guest came back in a couple of days later and came in with Zoe and said to her, look, Rob cut my hair last time, it's just a little bit too heavy, I didn't want to go back to him, can you fix it for me? Instead of just getting your thinning scissors out, razor out, or something to start tear away. A few more people. So in case you, instead of just hacking the hair to bits to take weight away, we could just start elevating slightly higher. So where I have mine on 90 degrees, Zoe's then going to come in, find where I elevated to, and explain that if we lift it slightly higher, then we're going to take more weight out. You're still going to keep the same length because your length is not going to change. Your overall line's not going to be altered. So your line will stay the same. Your elevation's just increasing. So that's a nice way to basically work with removing weight from hair in an elevation sort of way. Okay, so then we go on to overdirection. Now, overdirection is basically where you move hair away from its natural form. So when we're working with a line above shoulders or a line below shoulders, so like a bob, for instance, we don't want any overdirection. So everything comes down to where the hair is naturally going to fall. And that's going to give you the cleanest possible line. But overdirection comes where you want to build shape in areas and push hair into certain places of the head that you want to emphasize more or build more structure in. And I'll explain that very, very detailed on the mannequin because I've got quite a nice way of explaining it where the head falls and where the head rounds and where the hairline flows. Primarily, your shapes in hair cutting are square, round, and triangular. These are the fundamental shapes that we sort of look to work with when we're going into our level 3 work and how you manipulate hair to do something that it potentially doesn't want to do. So I said last week when I was cutting hair on the video, my hair, for instance, if we look at mine, I like my hair off my face, okay? So it's a bit messy at the moment. I've not had a chance to get it cut, but if it was all falling forwards, I wouldn't really like it. I've got a strange shaped head. So I have to push everything back off my face to give me a little bit of structure. So how do we do that? How does that happen in hair? And we can create something that naturally wants to push back for me. So we look at shape work, and that's overdirection. So square shapes are basically if you put a box on somebody's head and put their finger in the plug socket and the hair stands out on end, everything will hit the flat sides of that box and you'll get 5 corners around the head. Okay, so if somebody's got really fine hair behind the ears, for instance, you want to create some square shape to put more weight behind the ears and start to control that area into here. Your round shape would be something like my haircut or something off TV where I use The Only Way is Essex as an example, where all the girls on there like to have their hair off their face, dressed back, softness and getting longer towards the back. Round shapes get shorter in the front and longer in the back, and they push hair off of the face. So your sections will primarily, where my red lines go in here, your sections will primarily be from diagonal, from front into the back. Okay, and that directional section, is going to be your guideline for the cut. So however steep your line is, the lighter the hair is going to be, and however flat the hair goes is how heavy it's going to be. So the higher up your line becomes, the lighter the hair is going, but it's pushing from the front of the guest to the back of the guest. So it's pushing hair away. Primarily, somebody who has a graduated bob, for instance, where it gets shorter in the back, or your A-line bob, gets shorter in the back and longer into the front, that's going to be your triangular shape. Okay, so exactly flips from the round shape. So where the round shape pushes hair away from the face, the triangular shape pushes hair forwards into the face. And it gets shorter to longer and lighter to heavier. So if we remember last week when I did my graduated pop, where we had it was graduated. So we're in here with our elevation. So it's still going to be a heavy shape, but we got our elevation got lower as we came towards the front piece. So ultimately speaking, what we found was the hair was higher at the back, came longer, and then my piece of graduation was higher in here, and then came shorter and shorter until we met that point in the front. I don't know if you can see that. So my elevation changed, but my graduation was staying the same. It all came into the front piece, built that weight into here because my elevation became lower, but my graduation was all triangular, okay? If we're working with level 3 stuff, or when we go on to everything, even with the level 2 stuff, we combine these two, okay? So next week, I'm gonna do a really cracking layering technique that I use a lot with my guests in salon. And it's a case of combining your round shape with different forms of elevation, okay? But today I want to show you the structural focus that this can do and how this can help us with somebody with medium to fine hair or medium to thick hair, okay? So next week's going to be a cracking layering technique actually, which is really good. It's called a shake or a CBA, and it's going to combine the two sections and combine the two elements of elevation and overdirection and really give you something excellent to work with when you are in the salon. But today I want to focus on the classic-y side of working and really hopefully try and get you guys to think of this when you're working and understand the fundamentals of cutting. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I will be sending this video around, so it will be easy for you guys to watch it back, but it will make a lot more sense once we start cutting. Okay, so I'm going to move that back, and I don't think you can see my head sheets down there, so I'm going to tilt her forward just a little bit. Lovely. Hopefully that doesn't slam shut. And we're going to get going. So this is my mannequin here, and we are going to work with a square layer into triangular layering, and then I'm going to do something round in the front. So I'm going to combine all three shapes so that you can get an understanding of how we're working with shape and what they do for hair. Okay. Then when we go on a break while I'm blow drying, and then I'll give you a little image of what the hair looks like once we're finished, once I've finished the hair through. But hopefully you'll be able to see the influence of all three shapes and the influence of what we do with some elevation. Okay, I'm going to try and combine everything through. And then once we have a bit of an understanding through that, next week we're going to combine everything together and see how we can flow everything together. Okay, ultimately what you want to get to when you're working with hair cutting is a combination of your look. So you want your line, for instance, to form into your graduation and then flow into your layers. So you don't have any corners or any weight additionally in the hair. So that's where this is so important. And then your shape just pushes hair around. So it makes your life a lot easier when you're blow drying. If you've got a round shape in, for instance, if somebody wants the hair dressed off the face, if you cut it in a way to make it do that naturally, your blow dry is going to be 10 times easier. Okay. And then when she walks outside and gets caught in the wind, it's not just going to all flow straight in her face. It will, because if the wind's coming from behind, but it'll be a little bit more easy for her to push back, if that makes sense. So I've taken the liberty already of putting my line in. All right, I know everybody on this call today is quite, you're quite far through your level 2s, which is great. I know the Taylor guys, some of you have worked with quite a lot. I know Rimini and Jade, you guys are smashing at cutting hair. And those guys from over at Chiswick, I know you lot have, you've been working quite heavily on your cutting in Chiswick beforehand. So I don't want to belittle you all and say, oh, this is how we're going to go through your line, because your line work will be quite up to scratch. So we're going to go straight into our layers. Okay, so I have, if you can see, I've sectioned away from my crown area into behind the ear. Now, I had a question last week of why don't I work off my radial? And I thought it was a very good question, because I don't know if I've ever explained why. And the radial section is a fine section to work from. Nothing that I do differently is wrong from what other ways that you may be doing, or what other ways you may see in the salon. But for certain situations, I like to work from my crown, because it is your most difficult corners to control. Okay, there's 5 corners in the head. There's 2 on your sides here where you're recession, 2 behind your ear, and then this one that everybody forgets, or a lot of people seem to forget is there. And that's your biggest danger area. So if you're working from your radial section, which is just above your ear here, when you're pulling all of this hair behind, there's about an inch and a half worth of gap between your crown and your radial. You're over-directing that away from where it naturally falls, because this hair here, fundamentally, is going to want to fall behind the ear and down here somewhere when it dresses through. So if you're pulling that back to here, it's traveling further than where it needs to go. I hope that makes sense. So that when you dress it down where it naturally wants to fall, your line is going to change from being plumb square to be slightly rounded. So that's a lot of the time where people, I know me specifically, when I was training, I'd always do my line at the back and it'd be perfect, but then I'd lose it and my balance would be off in the front because I didn't have control of this top piece here. And it's such a small section, it's about that much of width, but it makes a huge difference to controlling your balance. And in a couple of weeks, I'm going to do just a bog standard bob above shoulders, because they are the hardest things to control. But I've got a fabulous way of doing that, a way that will really hopefully keep you guys balanced all the time in your careers. And there's nothing worse than, I've had it a lot of times, when you finish and you say, oh, how's the hair feeling in the back mirror? And the guest goes, is it longer on one side? And then you have to say, oh yeah, sorry about that, let me just cut that off. So controlling balance is key. So work from your crown or your radial. If you feel comfortable doing your radial, then do so. This is just my technique. As I say, everyone's got their own techniques, and it's nice to form those. And then run that in behind the ear. So just split the front from the back, and we're going to start. Okay. So as I say, I'm going to work square at the moment. So as I said earlier, if you put a box on the guest's head, everything comes out and hits that flat line. So I want to create some length in the side and get shorter in the center. So I want this to be a big box at the back. And my reason for, I will explain in a moment. So I'm going to do my first section down the back. And as we know with our layering, we take vertical sections, and we want to take some weight out of the hair. So I know I'm working square, and I know that I'm focusing on my elevation. So we're gonna, hopefully I'm gonna be able to get you to see this. If I spin her around, we have our vertical section, and I'm gonna come to the side so that you can see my elevation. So going back to my elevation chart, don't focus on shape at the moment because we're just putting our guide in. Okay, so if we're going back to, and I'm just people, elevation, layering is anything 90 degrees and above. But if I'm on 90, it's going to be a bit too heavy because she's got quite thick hair. It's been coloured as well, so it's got a little bit of thickness, added thickness to it. So I'm going to come a little bit higher. Let's move up. And keep the chin up at all times, okay? Make sure you're controlling the guest's head shape. Chin up, 90 degree angle between the chin and the chest, and you will be the same elevation the whole way around. And we're gonna take our first piece and allow your outline to drop away. So your outline drops away, and then we're gonna elevate. Now, what we'd normally be doing with our long graduation is lifting everything up really high. So if I were to pull this up here and cut that down, and then my length stayed away, in there, you're going to get a big corner, okay? So that's where your weight's going to form after the next couple of weeks when the hair starts to grow through. If you think of the 3D shape that we're creating, you want to get that corner away. And that's so important because that corner is going to build weight after a few weeks and pull the hair down and create less volume. So if you're explaining to your guest that this is what we're doing, she's going to think, wow, this is fantastic. So we want to get our shape, nice tension, and then I'm going to elevate just above that 90 degrees, okay? Pick up my shortest point, which is from my line, maintain our tension, and take that away. And then if I were to just leave that now, we'd get a corner in here. So I want to elevate slightly higher on that tight final top piece, just to create a little bit more weightless feel on that top section. Okay, so my elevation started in here, if you can see that. I don't know if you can see my comb. And then the top section, I've elevated slightly higher, just to create that little bit more roundness, okay, with my shape. If I didn't elevate that top piece, it'd just be a flat line, and this top piece of my cone would be where the corner falls. So the corner would be here, and you still have a bit of weight forming in the hair. So just by rounding that in, creates a bit more shape. And you'll see why that's important when we come to this top section and the sides, okay? So if I spin her around, it's quite dark hair, so you might not be able to see, but it sits quite nicely. So now we need to incorporate our over direction. So we're going to work square on this back piece. And the reason I'm doing that is, I'll explain now. And this is something I only really thought of a couple of months ago. But in here, we lose a lot of hair behind the ears. Yeah, I know mine specifically. I won't be able to show you too well, but I've got a big gap between my ear and my hairline. Some people's hair comes right close, some people's goes really far back. But this hair in the central section here, it's a lot of control, and there's no hole or no softness down on the line because there's enough hair down in the nape. There's enough hair down there to basically keep the thickness of our outline. But if you can see how high that goes, we lose a big chunk of hair around here. So when we're doing our uniform layers on level 2, and we're coming round 90 degrees from the head and everything's coming out here, when we're coming into this final part here, we're taking our outline. Our outline is in this section here, all up here. This is all our outline. So once we get that and pull it to here, we formally will always have a bit of a hole or a bit of a softness down here, which is not very flattering with a guest. And then the hairline on clients, at least, comes down a little bit lower around the sideburn area. So then it builds up again. So you get really nice thickness behind the ear and in front of the ear. But this section going around the ear, it loosens, doesn't it? And it has, I don't know if anybody's ever noticed that before. And you think, why is that happening with my uniform layer? So we need to control that, okay? So that's where shape comes in. And that's why I wanted to do this video today, is just to show you guys how you can control that area behind the ear and still create something really, really beautiful. But then you will have no questions at all about why has that happened or what's happened with that, okay? So that's where our square shape primarily comes in. So my central section, I didn't over direct, okay? So that was straight out from the back of the head. But now because the head is rounding, the head is coming round into the shape, obviously, as we all know. And we want to try and control some more weight and push some more weight in behind this ear area. So we need to pull this hair away from where it naturally sits to basically create some length and elongate our shape down there, to push some weight behind here, to fix that and control that place. So every single section that we do from here is going to come back to our previous section. Okay, so 2 to 1, 3 to 2, 4 to 3. All right, and I'll explain that a little bit more in this section here. So here come my layering sections, and each one is going to over direct back to the previous. And our over direction creates our shape, and our over direction elongates the length, so it creates more length internally. So if I draw where my expected fall is going to go, I don't know if you'll see this. I'm gonna tilt the front of the window for a second. Actually, if I pick it up, I can. There you go. So we're gonna push this line down. Right. Push that line down, and then the line comes into the front, and then our layering is now, hopefully you can see this green pen. I don't think you really can. But the layers are going to be high in the back, and then they're going to gradually get longer and longer and longer as they come in to behind the ear. It's a bit too far forwards. Okay, so by over-directing, we're gradually pushing length down into our outline. See what I mean? But with your uniform layer brings the shape, change the color of that pen. The uniform layer will come around here from our shortest point and just continue round into here. So then that creates a little bit of a hole down there. Okay, I hope that makes sense. But you will see now what I mean once we're coming through. So that's a little bit heavier than I expected. So we are now going to take our next section, which is going to stay vertical. okay? And we're going to over-direct that to the previous section. So comb all of that away, and I'm going to show you the over-direction first, and then I'll spin round and show you my elevation, because my elevation is going to stay the same. I'm happy with the weight of the hair, so I don't need to change my elevation. It's just my over-direction. So if I wasn't over-directing, I'd be coming into here, okay? Because it's following the roundness of the head. But I want to build length in that back piece, so I'm going to over-direct to the previous. So we start to pull the hair back to that first section. Hopefully you can see that. So if I spin round, back again, head stays in the same position for the guest. And we're going to have our elevation slightly higher because we're happy with that. So it's just above that 90 degrees. And then that highest point, again, we just lift slightly higher to create that slight weightless feel through into the front. So then section 3, exactly the same, so nice and vertical. And get rid of section 1, keeps your work a little bit cleaner. And we're going to over-direct section 3 back to section 2. So ultimately, when we electrocute her and her hair stands out on end, it's a nice square line, and we're creating length in here, and we're creating control for this area down in the base, okay? Not saying a uniform layer is the wrong way to cut it if somebody's got medium to fine hair, but it's, this way is just a little bit cleaner, and it's just a little bit more controlling behind the ear, okay? So our over direction comes back to the previous, and elevation stays the same. So that last little piece, just a slight dink off there to enhance the roundness. And section 4 or section 6, doesn't matter if your sections are really small. We're going to over direct those, section 4, back into section 3, and elevation stays the same. So this way as well, you're not taking any length off your line, and you'd have just spent 10 minutes, 15 minutes putting your line, and going to come back and cut it all off. So you're just wasting your own time in salon, and we all know that time in salon is very, very important. Okay, so I'm just muting some people. So now if we check that down visually, we can see in there that we've got a lot more control down on our overall outline than we would have done if we'd just uniform layered. Okay, I hope that makes sense. As I say, if there's any questions, please do jump in and ask. Is there anything in the chat? No, nothing in the chat. I hope this is making sense to you guys. It's a strange way of cutting because wouldn't have cut like this too much before, but it's just a way to control shape and to control your areas that you need to do. When we were working with the graduated Bob last week, we were very heavily triangular. And it's just a way to keep everything in, obviously your line's going to be triangular, but if in here is all flat graduation or just messy, the hair's not going to flow and it's not going to sit with that nice silhouette that you want to create for your guest. If you're working internally with your shape work, then everything's connected and everything flows to this beautiful little point into the front. And it makes such a big difference when your guest goes outside or starts to do her hair at home. And we really want to work on keeping our guests in our columns, because that's how we make the money at the end of the day, okay? So primarily speaking, if you can work with shape and elevation and you're not hacking the hair to bits with your razor or your thinning scissors, which as I said is not a bad way to work, but if you want to do something technically, these are really good ways to work it. So we come to the left-hand side and we do the same, but just push away from ourselves. So we're going to go section 2 in here, back into section 1, keep my elevation. As I say, I'm quite happy with the elevation. So you can see my over direction there. If I wasn't over direction, I'd be here, but I'm pushing away, okay? It's so important to keep control of your over direction. And sometimes push a bit too much almost. If you're pushing too much, then not enough, you can always take hair off. As we all know, you can't ever put hair back on. The last section, I'm just going to elevate slightly higher. And then we're going to go to section number 3. And push that back into section number 2. So we're building length. See what I mean by the building of length? So we're over directing, we're pulling this hair here away from its natural fall to increase its length and increase its flow. But because we're connecting it with the previous sections, we're still connecting it with the haircut. it still maintains everywhere in the cut being connected. So not like on the Wednesday cuts that we do, where they're quite creative and they're working with disconnections and asymmetricity and things like that. With classic salon work, everything connects, everything works, everything flows, and everything has, every point of connection is connected, if that makes sense. And then section number 4, we push back into section number 3 and keep our elevation the same. So if we pull that down and double check through and have a little visual check first of all. If I lift her up, you can see the control. It's hard to see because it's on the dark thing. And I've had to turn a few lights off because there's a glare on the thing, but hopefully you can see the control that we've created just behind the ear in there. So it's still got that weight and still got that structure, okay? Now, does anybody have any ideas how I'd cross-check this? Anybody got any ideas? If you do, unmute yourselves. Oh, I've got to say it in the chat too. Sounds like Harry Potter's music in the background. Should I turn the music off? Do you like Harry Potter's music? Does anybody have any idea how I would cross-check this at all? Anybody at all? Okay, so with cross-checking, we work against our shape. Oh, here we go. Cross-check opposite where you're cutting. And in yeah as well, but both of you, perfect, excellent. So we're going to cross-check horizontally because we've worked vertically, okay? So absolutely right. But where would I elevate this to? Anybody have any ideas where I may elevate this to? So you're right, I'll work horizontally or opposite way to how I'm cutting, but where would I elevate? Same elevation, perfect, excellent. So the reason for the same, good, well done Jade as well, very good. Jessica and Jade, well, nice answers. So exactly the same place as where we have elevated with our layers, we elevate with our cross-checking. And that's crucial, okay? And I'm gonna show you why. So if you start getting a little bit lazy and telling, I've done it before and I've taken something off that didn't need to be taken off, or I'm in a rush and thinking, oh, my next client's here, what am I gonna do? You've gotta be focused on your cross-checking, okay? So we're gonna work it horizontally and we're gonna elevate up to where we cut the hair from. So this is my top piece. And remember we elevate slightly higher, so I'm gonna lift that slightly higher. And I'm looking for a square line here, okay? I want this to be dead square. And if it's not, then I apologize. And then we fix it. But elevation, nice tension, we lift high, and we've got a nice square line, which is good. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to try and spin it so you can see it. So if we lift up, hopefully you can see, yeah, you can. And we've got our nice square shape. Okay, and the length in the middle is shorter than the length out here. So that's what we were aiming for that square shape. But say now I got a bit lazy with my cross-checking and I thought I just can't be arsed. I'm gonna cross-check it down here, a little bit lower. See, it's a lot messier. I don't know if you can see. So much messier, and there's little dinks coming out and little bits coming out. So then I think, oh God, let me cut that off. And then you're changing your shape completely. Okay, so where it was very good technical shape up here when you're cross-checking, if you're cross-checking here, it's going to change and you're going to get bits coming out because that's not where you've cut the hair to, okay? So it's so crucial to cross-check the haircut where you cut the shape, all right? And that is the biggest tip I can ever give any of my students that I'm working with in salon or on calls or anything like that, because it's primarily going to give you your perfect work. So if you're getting really creative and you're cutting your layers round at 270 degrees, cross-check it there, okay? And it will never let you down, okay? So now that we've created our shape in the back, we've got some nice layers going through. It's a little bit elevated, a little bit higher, so we've got a good shape running down there now, okay? Still got the control behind the ears as well, so we've not got any horrible holes or any areas of lighter softness in the front. And now we move on. So if I was going to work this square in the front, it would be a very hard, unflattering look if I were to just pull everything out here and work that square on a lady, okay? And plus, if we're remembering that we're imagining this lady's got quite medium to fine hair. So everybody in your hair yourselves has a finer piece of hair running through the front, okay? It gets thicker as it comes back to sort of above the ears, behind the ears. Mine especially. If I get to know you better and come to work with you guys, I'll show you my hairline. It's not great. So you need to push weight forwards now. So we need to push weight forwards, and we're going to bring the hair from front to back and flow that length from shorter in the back to longer in the front. So what shape would that be, do we think? If we look back on this board, what shape am I looking for now? Does anybody know? So we've worked square. Now we're going to be pushing length forwards. Would that be round or triangular? Does anybody have any ideas? Give it a few seconds for the chat. Triangular, yes. Well done, Nadine. Really good. So we want the hair to go forwards, yeah? So triangular shapes push that hair forwards. So hopefully that's making sense to a lot of you, that we've worked square, we've controlled behind the ears, and now because we don't want to take loads of weight out of this front piece just yet, okay? So we want to push that weight into the front. So we work triangular. So everything comes to the back, and then we push that weight forwards, okay? So that hopefully is then going to give us enough strength to do some framing around the face. If we were to come through and do some round shape in the front first of all, and then she said she wants a fringe or a little side fringe or a bit of forward graduation, it's almost too light to be able to create a strong shape in there and something that is easiest to control, okay? So triangular work from here. So I'm going to lower her down a tad. And now everything is done from behind the guest. So you nail your feet to the floor, or glue them, it's probably a little bit easier. And take a piece from the base, or a piece from the back section. I'll just show you where I'm going with this. So just take a horizontal section from here. And then we're going to work down now. So everything is diagonally facing forwards because we want our triangular shape to flow now in the base. And this layering that we've created that's going shorter to longer internally to control that shape behind the ear, we're now picking that up to run that into the front, okay? So we're remembering where our elevation was from beforehand. So we elevated just above 90 and then a little bit higher. We're going to go to that higher point, okay? If we were to go to the lower point, we're going to have light, really heavy, then light again. If we think of our 3D shape, so we're going to have a big block in there and then it catches up. So we want to flow that shape round now. So as I say, the line is connecting with our layers, and then the layers in the back are coming to connect with the front. Okay, and we lift up, really nice tension, and we over-direct back to our highest point into here, pick up our piece, and cut that away. Okay, so then we just work forwards. So next section, parallel to the section previous. And because we're working triangularly, we're over-directing everything back to that main first section now. Everything comes back to here, okay? So we're severely pushing weight into the front. So again, over-direct to the previous and pull back to the first. So elevation stays the same. Lift it nice and high and take that away. And then again, just down into this side piece. We're pulling this really far away from where it naturally falls, aren't we? So where we find all of this hairline around here is all quite narrow and quite delicate. Look how far we're pulling that away to control that weight, okay? With our uniform layer, we're coming in here. So we're taking all of that weight off. Look at how much hair would be taken off in there. So just by pulling stuff away and using over direction and utilizing shape, we can create strength in that outline. And then when we come onto our forward grad in a moment, you're going to see exactly why that makes a big, big difference to the control of the weight in the front. Okay? So again, third section, all the way back, same elevation, and we're controlling length in the front. Okay, same tensions, really nice tension running through here. So now, when I cross-check this, I'm going to, as we've said, as the guys have said in the chat there, I'm going to work this horizontal. I'm going to work it against the way we cut it. So I'm working vertically, so I'm going to cross-check horizontally. But I'm going to change my horizontal just to ask you if you do know where the line's going to fall. So normally we would cross-check horizontally and pull it back to where we cut it. Okay, but I'm going to do something different, and I'm going to ask anyone if they think they know what the line's going to be. So if I pull her down, and if I'm going to cross-check everything completely straight up, where's my line going to be? Okay, is it going to be square? Is it going to be short to long from back to front, or is it going to be short to long from front to back? Anybody have any idea? Remember that we're pulling things all the way back to here. So what's that line going to be in the top, do we think? Anything in the chat yet? No, not yet. Here we go. Short to long, which way, Jessica? Is it short to long this way or short to long this way, do you think? Back to front or front to back? Back to front, good. Well done, Jade and Jessica. You were on the right track as well, and I know a lot of you are as well. But perfect. So that's really where we're. Yeah, you're right. Back to front, other way. Because it's weird because I've got it mixed up here on the thing, and I'm talking a bit too much. But back to front. So we're over directed, so we're creating more length in the front, and this should be. Hopefully, it is, because otherwise. It's not going to look very good. If we lift high, yeah, short to long, okay? And that's keeping all of this weight around here in the front section. So if we dress that down, and then if I mess it up a little bit, and if I lift it up as well, got all of that layering in there, but it's still heavy here, isn't it? It's put all of that structure into this front piece where we lose a lot of hair, and it's so fine around the face. That if you're doing something uniform layering and you've got all of this is really see-through and really sparse because you've taken all the weight out of it with a uniform layer, when you do a forward graduation, you're not going to see it and you're not going to see the benefits of that. But by over-directing back, we've still got layers running in here, which are really quite sweet and really quite bouncy. But you've still got your structure and you've still got all of this here to work with afterwards, which we're going to change for another shape in a moment. Okay, so I hope that's making a lot of sense. It's just thinking about the hair and thinking about the thickness of hair and what's going to happen if I do a uniform layer and then it starts to go very fine and very sparse on the outlines, and then I can't control that length with any form of shaping around the front or anything. So, sorry, I'm having a bit of trouble with this stand. So, we're going to go and do the same on this side. So again, we're standing directly in the back of the guest. Spin her around so you can see. And again, we take take our guideline from a horizontal section from the highest point that we worked before. Okay, so horizontal section into here. And then we start working our shape diagonally forwards. Okay, nice clean sections. Keep your sections really clean too. I say this all the time to my guys who I work with in Loughton and Camden, and I sound like a broken record, but primarily, if your sections are neat and tidy, you look like you're in control of the hair, first of all. And as we were discussing last time, looking like you're knowing what you're doing is so crucial, especially if you're charging a lot of money. And then also, if I have messy sections or untidy work, then it starts to get on my nerves. So I start to get lost and get frustrated with the haircut. So then I start losing control of my technique. So keep your sections really clean and our elevation stays the same. I'm going to pick up our guide, run that shape in, and exactly the same shape on this left-hand side as we did on the right-hand side. So body position stays the same. Your guest's body position always stays the same as well, because we don't need her to move it. We don't need her to change what she's doing or where she's looking. We just got to make sure she's up nice and 90 degrees between the chin and the chest. If she's looking down and you're elevating at 90 degrees, when she puts her head up, you're going to be graduating slightly. Does that make sense? So you're going to think, why is it so heavy? Rob told me that if you're 90 degrees, it's layering. But if her head's forwards, when she picks her head up, that hair's going to switch. So then it's going to be graduating. So it's really important to control where she's looking. Okay, so again, next section, section 2, we over-direct back into the first section. Keep our elevation the same because we're quite happy with that. Check your balance. And then come down into the side piece. And then we run out of hair because that's our outline. We don't want to cut that. Right, Daisy.
Sorry, didn't mean to speak.
You're all right.
Yeah, the car alarm.
Okay, yeah.
So I put the phone down.
Right, so if you need anything, let me know, all right?
That's all right.
So we're going to over-direct our front section, same elevation, and into that back part, okay? And then just for peace of mind for me, I'm just going to cross-check this again, and I'm going to do exactly the same as before. I like coming high with this. It's breaking my own rule, but, you know, hey-ho. And then short to long. Perfect. So that's now your internal layering and your external line done, okay? But it's still not looking that good in the front, is it? If we're honest, the layers in the back, give her a shake. She looks quite cool. Got a nice little layer running through. The hair wants to naturally flick and naturally bounce. But then in here, it's a bit nothingy, isn't it? So we need to do something in there. Okay, so this is where you're going to go from being hairdressers that just churn out haircuts to hairdressers that are getting there, busy, thinking about the hair, what looks good on the guest, what doesn't look good on the guest, what's her face shape like, what are her features, what are we looking for to make pop on her face, and how are we going to do that? What can we use to basically open that front piece up and push the hair back off of her face? And then we go back to here, back to your fundamentals, back to your shapes. We've done square, which is just square in the back to push weight behind the ears and control. We've used triangular to push that weight into here and keep control of this outline. Now we need to push the hair off her face. So we're going to come into round. We're going to work circular, if you will. Okay? So this is all for graduation. Now, anybody struggle with forward graduation? Anybody find it quite difficult, a bit of forward graduation? Because I know up until, God, a year ago, I've been cutting hair for 14 years. Leah, yeah, me too. I've been cutting hair for 14 years, and up until about a year ago, I just thought, what do I don't even know how to do it. And I'd be guessing of where I was going and doing the whole one where your fingers move as well as your scissors, and I could never get my balance bang on. Okay, so I have a good way. I found a very nice way of doing it, and I don't know why I didn't think of it before, because it's a really easy way to work, and it uses every feature that you want to open up and make pop on the guest, or any feature that you really want to bring out. And it's a really nice way of keeping your clients too. So if you've got somebody in your chair, a guest in salon, and you're saying to her, right, I think we should do something in the front. Maybe not a bang heavy fringe, or maybe even a little side fringe, something like that. But if you're working something longer and you don't want anything in there or there, focus on this area of her. Focus on around the baseline, from nose to cheekbones and into the lip area and the jawline. Someone will have a good feature. Everyone will have something that you think, that could be quite cool if we positioned hair onto there. So this mannequin, I'm quite lucky. Some of the mannequins are not very good looking, are they? If we're honest. But this mannequin's not too bad. So she's got a fabulous jawline. She's got quite a pointy chin, which is quite cool, and some nice little lip area and a nice shaped nose. So it's a nice symmetrical face. So I'm going to use the tip of her nose and the corners of the lips to influence this jaw area, okay? Because if you're aware, if you'll agree, that's not very flattering from the side, is it, in the front? So we want to do something in there. So you're going to explain to your guest, you've got a beautiful jawline, you've got amazing lip lines, amazing lip area, really lovely cheekbones. Why don't we influence those areas, emphasize those, pull the hair away from there to make those areas pop? don't feel uncomfortable talking about somebody's facial tips. They come to you to feel good about themselves and to leave feeling $1 million. So if you've explained, look, your face is amazing, so symmetrical in here and your jawline's really excellent, let's do something with your hair to make that area stand out a little bit more. She's going to think, oh God, lovely. I'm going to get my jawline out more often. So let's do that. So sounds like flirting. Yeah, it does. For honest, I had there's a lot of old ladies where I used to work, so I was very busy. They seem to quite like it, but it can sound like flirting, but not in a creepy way. Like if you like lusting over somebody, that's a bit strange. Let's be honest. Flattery will get you everywhere. Yeah, exactly, it will. So if you're having a laugh with them and you're getting on with them and you're chatting away with people and you're getting, let's be fair, we all know what guests are like. They'll tell you everything about their lives when they're in front of the mirror. So if you're getting some stuff from them and you're telling them things about your life and you're getting that sort of personal feel to them, it then doesn't become creepy. It becomes, look, we're almost friends at the moment. They'll see you as a bit of as a friend and a place to tell you their stuff because you're a hairdresser. That's what they do. We are counsellors. We're artists and counsellors. So if flirting, I'm not sure if I'm flirting with a guest, but I've just made them feel good or tried to make them feel good. And in return, they make me feel good because they love their hair. And then they help me out with little issues in my life and things like that. So it's a two-way thing. They help us, we help them. But if you can make them feel good about themselves, then that is what we're here to do at the end of the day. Okay? So we're going to work for graduation. And this is one of the ways that I feel is fantastic. And I know with Leah, actually, on my Mondays, we worked this, and it was tough, wasn't it? It was difficult to understand. But once you do it frequently, you'll get it, and it's perfect, okay? So we're going to work round, and we're going to work with elevation, okay? And this is where we go from just being an elevator or an overdirector to getting everything together and combining it with what we've already done. So we are going to take our first section, the width of her nose. Okay, that's all you need to do. And there's tutorials online where they twist it and they twist it like 4 or 5 times and then cut it. I've never tried it, so I don't know if that's right. I'd be wary of trying it because I've come from a place where twisting it is not really the way to go. But if you find that works, then good for you. Go for it. As I say, this is my way. Find your own ways as well. Okay. So we're going to take a central section, the width of her nose, if I'm right in front of it. And all I'm going to do is choose my length. So I'm going to choose just below her jawline here, just below her chin level. Because when we blow dry, we want to make sure we've got enough length to create that kick and create that flick. If I do it up here, because that's where I want the flick to start, the flick's going to come up and she's going to have a little side fringe. Okay, so leave length, be conservative. Oh, that's me. That's my voice. I don't know if you can hear that. So that scared me. I thought there was someone else here. So just below the jawline, and I'm going to just cut that nice and flat. And then we're going to use our features, okay? So I'm going to stand directly in front of my guest, but I'm not going to do that because you won't be able to see. So I'm going to spin her around, and we want to stand directly in front. If we start stepping round, we start cutting into here, which we don't want to do. We want to curve that now. We want to keep all of that. We've just built all that structure down here. So you don't want to come in there and just bing that off there, okay? You want to keep that weight. That's the sort of shape we're looking for. So we pick up our next piece, and our elevation is going to, if we imagine this face, she's facing the other way, because it's the same principle either way, we're going to elevate to about 20 degrees, something like that. So we're graduating away. Push her head slightly back from you, makes it a little bit easier. And we're going to start to angle our fingers into points of interest on the body. And this is where we keep our balance, because if she's symmetrical, your cut will be symmetrical, okay? So we're going to come down, and my knuckle is facing the point of her nose, if you can see that. I don't know if you can see that. And then that automatically pokes my fingertips down to the floor, and automatically leaves out my length in front of the ear. Yeah? So again, elevation is about 20 degrees, but my knuckle is facing her nose and my fingertips down to the floor. And then I cut up there and reach my guide that we cut just a moment ago from the central point. Okay? And then standing in the same place, we pull the areas from in front of her ears, which we really want to keep these long. So all we do again is twist round, point your fingertips or your knuckles up to the point of her nose. And then if I bring that in close, don't know if you can see, you've got your line here and then your big gap and then your shortest point there. And we cut that away. Okay? So then when we assess that, where that's falling, this dresses down and we get that quite nice shape. Okay? So now we need to balance that. How do we balance that? And I'm going to come around this side actually, so hopefully you'll see it a bit better if I'm in here. Hopefully my hand's going to get in the way that side. I'll come back around this side. I'm going to stand out the way, all right, so you can see. But same principle, you stand directly in front, okay? And then again, we pick up our next piece from the other opposite side. And this time, my fingertips point into her nose. Yeah? So this side was my knuckles. This side's my fingertips, because it's just easier. All I'm doing is this, okay? And then we're using her point of her nose again as my guide. I've got my guide from that central piece that I cut, and my knuckles instantly fall down and point to the floor, okay? And then we take this next piece from in front of the ear, and again, pull it to the same place, same elevation, point my fingertips to the point of her nose, the knuckles instantly drop to the floor, and I take that line away. Keeping control of that outline that we've just spent so long trying to protect with our internal layers. We now protect that with our overall line. And if I bring her forwards to show you the first section. It's a bit of a thin section, so you might not see it. We'll see it better with the second one. But you can see how that dress is there. So she's got that shape, keeping control of our overall line down here, okay? So easy way to keep your balance. It works every time, I guarantee you. It will feel funny because you've got to be really in there like this, and you want to move around and you want to move your feet. Keep your feet in the same place. Trust me, this works so well. So if you start moving in, you're going to start cutting into this line here that you want to keep. So keep yourself in there and just twist your body around, okay? And that way your balance will always be perfect, I guarantee you. Do be careful though if her face isn't symmetrical. So if you're using cheekbones and one cheekbone can sit slightly higher than the other, so then you're going to be off balance. So make sure you check her face first, okay? It sounds weird, that sounds very weird. So then we're going to move back, okay? So this is where we continue with our round shape. Exactly the same technique, but we're going to start to elevate, okay? So if we think back to our expanded shape or our 3D shape, we have to be sure that we're not going to create any corners in the hair or any instability or any weight in the hair. So if I go back to my head sheets, I haven't drawn a head sheet for a while, have I? So if we go back to our head sheets now, this would be a good time to do the forward grad, actually. Whee! So layers, we know, the layers are all coming back to here. A bit behind on the head sheet, so I apologise. So my layers were coming in here, and then they were elevating a little bit higher. You can't see that green pen anymore, it's run out. So our layers were in there, and then the highest point came into here, and then everything came back into there, didn't it, if we remember, okay? I'm going to try and find another colour pen in here. Oh, I can't be bothered. That'll do. Actually, I've got one in my bag, one sec. No, I don't. So we'll carry on with this. So in our forward graduation, I'm going to have to lift her up again, aren't I? Sorry, guys, 1 second. I do apologise. This is very unprofessional. If I lift her high, we can see that. So our sections are coming in here. okay? And each section is going to come back to just behind the ear. But then where we pulled this to, we wanted our shape to come into here. We were just elevating about 20 degrees, okay? And then our line is coming down to there, if that makes sense, okay? So that's our first section. And then our second section, so our first section falls down into there. And now we're going to be working our shape rounded. So if we go back to here, we're pushing weight back, but we also want to additionally add some more elevation, because otherwise it's going to be too heavy on this point here, isn't it? So if every section going back came to this one point, it's going to be too heavy. We're going to have a big corner. So section 2 is going to elevate into there. Yeah. Section 3, elevate to just behind or just below your graduation. And section 4, you're probably going to run out of hair by then. But remember that, because that's what we're going to do next week. Okay, so does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to show you now. Rohan, that seems like it's made a bit of sense there. Big thumbs up, thank you. So if we shift that out of the way, and now section 2, because we don't want to create any weight on this now, we're going to elevate, okay? But the same technique occurs, all right? So we push our head away, stand directly in front, and if you remember, my first elevation was here. My second elevation is going to just come up to here, okay? And now you can take bigger sections. You haven't really got to angle it too much into the face. You've got your guides. And now we just run that down. You'll find your guideline and just elevate that away, okay? So we're gradually pushing our weight back off the face, all right? And then section number 3, which will no doubt be your last section. I never really go too far beyond section 3 because you've cut the hair already internally, so you don't really need to mess around or play around too much with that shape, okay? So section number 3, we've elevated a little bit higher in section 2. So section 3, quite self-explanatory, just elevates a little bit higher. I'm going to lower her down so you can see it, okay? So next section, stand on the stand so it doesn't move. And section 3, elevate high. And you can see it's just a small dustings to take away for this. But this is our forward graduation. So we've graduated that front piece. And now we're just raising off that slight weight line, just so that it doesn't have so much weight to it and so much instability to it once it starts to grow through. And if we spin her around and now assess where that wants to go, I twist her away. And we can see that she sits with quite a nice little layered bit of softness in that front area, okay? Sits with a really cool little graduate bit. So this is the moment where I'm going to blow dry. So take a break if you want to. Go and get yourselves a coffee. We've been on for an hour now, so I'm sure you're all pretty sick of my rambling. Any questions just before you do go on your break, please do fire them in. I'm going to blow dry. I'm going to do just a little soft, bouncy blow dry, nothing too salony, but I want to show you what the hair can do once it's got a little bit of a wave to it. And then give it about 15 minutes, and then I'll see you back just to show you through, talk you through it, recap over this section, and then we're good to go. Okay, so take a 15-minute break, and I'll see you in a moment. All right, excellent. So, twist that aside. So
Rob, Rob, when am I? Wait, it's Paris. When am I back at college?
Hello?
When am I back at college?
Probably start of August.
What, Mondays?
Well, possibly the same day. I'm not too sure. We should find out this week.
And I need a salon.
Right, okay. I'll ring you later.
All right, okay, thank you.
Because all of our EEs are on furlough still, so I'll speak to you in a bit, all right?
All right, thank you.
That's sweet. Right, so we will be back in about 5 minutes. Well, 4 minutes. Let you know. Back in a moment. Right, so I'm going to give that a chance to cool down, and then while everyone comes back for 30 seconds. It's half hot in here. Are you guys allowed to have your aircon on in salons when you're back? Because apparently no hairdressers are allowed to have aircon on. So yeah, Leah, no, I'm not allowed. See, I'm the only one in here, and I'm still not allowed it on. Hot, isn't it? Jonas, you're allowed. That's lucky. We don't even have aircon. How can you not have aircon, Shane? Really? That's not good. We'll have to get onto your salon about that, because that's not fair. So, whenever you're working with your round brushing or your blow drying, your finish is the most crucial part. Okay. It was on once, but didn't have it since that once. AC and window open a bit. I'd like to work in your place. So let the hair cool down. Okay, you all know this. We all know this, that if you're heating hair up in the brush, then allow it a chance to cool down afterwards. Because if I was to come run my fingers through this now, you're just going to pull all of that curl out that you've created. So allow it to cool down, and then run through with your shape. Okay. So I've got a little bit of serum here. I'm not sure, I've never used this stuff, so I'm not sure how good this is. But all salons will have a serum or something in their product range. So there's only left in this one. I think I'll get another one. 1 second. So we have our serum. All salons will have a bit of serum in their ranges. So get a little bit, nice couple of squirts, not too much. Don't go mad. Really important. If you're putting this through the front, then it's just going to go greasy, and then you've got to try and explain that away, and still ask her to spend some money. So put it on, dab it off. Okay, it will always stay on your hands. You know how oily serum is. So a little bit. Dab it onto a towel. Really nice little tip there, that you don't then spread your excess on the guest. And then I'm going to drop her head back. Okay, get your guest, always drop your head back for me, if you would. If you've got creams and things other than serum, you use those too. And then we're just going to dress this out. So now it's set into place. We'll run our fingers in. Now this hair has been coloured to Billy-O, so it's going to be a bit tacked on. But doesn't matter, we can get around that. So just run your fingers through, and it won't be tangly on a real person's hair, but it doesn't matter on a doll. And then just try and loosen up all of those curls, all of those waves that you've just created. Loosen them all up and create your shape with your hands. So this is where you turn into your creating your shape. So you've built your shape cut-wise, and now you're just styling it all out and creating that bounce and creating that wave into the hair. So I'm just going to round so you can have a look in the front. Your hands get all slippery too. So moving doll heads is not the easiest thing to do. But just create that little bit of something in there. Show off your work now, okay? So this is where, as we said last week, and I think a few of you said that some people in Taylor do this. There will be some people in your other salons that do this also. Start to just play with it and maneuver the hair around and make it look like you're really conscious of what the hair is doing and where the hair is falling. Then get your spray. Always finish with a bit of spray, especially with your ladies who are in my area anyway. Spray that down, get that nice little bit of bounce, nice little bit of movement to the hair. Control all of this length down here. It just gives you a chance then to run around and have a little look in the mirror and check the shape around. I mean, I am, when I say I'm ridiculous in salons, I'm ridiculous in salons. I'm down checking, making sure that they know that I know the work is good. It's so crucial that they're aware that everything you've done is perfect. Okay. So that's just nicely dressed in there, and that's dressed in there. So I'm gonna get this off my hands. So if we see what we have done, I swivel her around. So pick her up. We've got that bounce and that structure in the front piece. So that sits quite nicely in there. Still got that strength and structure down the base, but then the hair just wants to sit back off of her face. Gives you that really nice silhouette in the front, but you've still got a lot of texture and a lot of support and stability down there. And then the layering through the back section, if we give her a bit of a shake, it's just got that really nice bouncy, this is in the way, hang on. It's got that really nice bouncy sort of layered feel with no weight or no structural differences. And then when we just dress it all back off of her face, it all sits quite nicely. Also works quite nicely when she does that thing that most girls do, where they flip the hair back and it just wants to dress, and they're looking down, bang. Make sense? So I hope you like it. Overall, that's a nice way of working. So it's got a lot of structure to it. So she's going to go out the front now, and it's going to blow all over the place. As soon as she pops into Superdrug down Loughton High Street, it's just going to fall back into shape. Then when she dresses all over, yeah, nice little whiplash. I know, it's not good. But so I hope that makes sense. Thank you, Jessica. That's nice of you. So if we go back to this, and just hopefully this makes a bit more sense now after that haircut, because throughout everything that I've done in my career, I start, as you all know, where I worked. If I haven't told you, then I'll watch one of my videos. I no doubt say it. But all we did was shape work all the time. Work on your shape. Make sure that you're understanding your shapes, your elevation. Because if we were to then go through this haircut here and start texturizing it down and taking weight away with the thinning scissors and things like that, if I move that over, get her in, actually, she's the star of the show, isn't she? If we were to start doing now some weight removal with our thinning scissors and things like that, you're not going to get that same structure and the same control of the shape. You're not going to have that nice beautifulness in the front there that just sits and marries into the shape. It's going to take too much of the structure away that you've just created. So ultimately, we need to get this whole elevation chart is so key to how we remove weight from hair. I mean, my hair now, it looks too long. I look ridiculous, don't I, today? But it's so bulky in here that when it was last done by the chap that done it, it was too heavy. His elevation was too low. So I've got a long, narrow face. It's not good. But I need it tucked in a little bit more up here. So his elevation, if it was a little bit higher, once it grew out, it wouldn't be so bulky and so wide, if that makes sense. So it's the same thing with ladies' hair. You've got to use your elevation chart to allow your weight to bounce, but then also shape to control areas. Down here behind her ear here, I mean, that's controlled really quite nicely, I think. It's got that nice structure. It's got the weight here in front of the ear, but it's still got that nice soft, bouncy layer around the back. And then this whole front piece just dresses in really nicely to it. So it has that really nice form, that really nice shape. Under here, if we were uniform layering, that would have had a big hole in there. So we've got to make sure that we control that, okay? So we do that with our shapes. Remembering that square shapes just form the square shape, building our corners. Round shapes push hair from front to back, getting shorter in the front, longer in the back, and lighter to heavier as you go. And triangular shapes do the opposite. So they flip the hair forwards, go lighter to heavier, shorter to longer in the front. We have something. How do you get long hair to hold the curl? My friend's dropped out mega quick. Is one length and fine? Good question. If it's one length and fine, that's your reason, to be honest. If someone's got thick hair, layer it down, it will hold better because there's not as much weight pulling it down. But with someone with quite fine hair or delicate hair, it's a lot more difficult to get the curl to hold. You may have seen, if you was watching my blow dry, you may have seen me spraying it with spray individually each time I go up each section. My reason for that is where I came from, we didn't use round brushes. So my round brushing isn't as good as some of your guys will be. So I put my curl in, utilize my brush as my heated roller, per se, because they heat up, and then drop it into place and spray it down. Use your products. Use like a setting lotion, a setting curl lotion, hairspray, something like that. That will make it hold a little bit better. Could you use tongue and pin curl it until it cools? Exactly, absolutely. You can do. You use whatever tools are there at your expense. If you use straighteners even, or irons, just to give it a twist, let the hair curl, like you say, Andy, let the hair curl down, cool down first of all, and then when you dress it out, it doesn't go too frizzy. Okay. If the hair's been madly coloured, that's a different story. You see, with this, it's been coloured quite a bit, so the blow dry was really quite difficult to actually pull the brush out. I thought it was going to break my brush, but hey ho. So I hope that answers your question. If it's fine hair, it's more difficult. Utilise your products and utilise your hairspray individually in between each section. If it's a really stiff hold hairspray, maybe lay off the hairspray a little bit too much. Have a bash at it. Let me know how it goes, if you would. I'm sure I'm in one of your groups, so let me know. Thank you very much, guys. If there's any more questions, fire them at me. If not, then text me in the groups that we're in. I hope you're all keeping safe and keeping well. I hope this makes sense. All right. If it doesn't make sense, I'm going to send the video back into you guys. Watch it again. If not, then give me a text on WhatsApp, and I'll get back to you. Thank you very much. Keep safe, keep well, and we'll have more information for you guys when we're back in Academy from about August time. We'll be back, we think. All right. Thanks, guys. My pleasure. Thank you very much. My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. Oh, and also, the guys who are in my class today, my Mondays from Loughton, I'm going to email you all in a bit with some little bit of work, but just send me back your notes that you've took, and if you need me, let me know. Cheers. Thanks. Bye-bye.